now. Okay, so Carl, thanks very much for joining me here today.
You're welcome.
We have known each other for a few years now. You've helped me. You've been a kind of mentor. I've read your books. I'm in your group. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do and who you are a little bit?
Sure. So I'm Carl Pate. This is my, I keep saying second career. I'm never quite sure whether it's second, third, fourth, or fifth at the moment. But I started out as an accountant, so I was finance director for a big company in the UK. So we did a management buyout. That's my big part of my story in that part of the thing. It was nearly 3 decades I was in there. So we did a management buyout back in 2000. It was a business that was on its knees. The business had lost about £165 million in the 5 years before we bought it. It lost £65 million in the year that we bought it. We turned it around in 3 years and sold it. We bought it for £1, and we sold it for tens of millions about 12 years later. So that's my big story, because in there there's like 1,000 business lessons and business stories that we could go through. Then I stayed on with them for 4 years. Which is 4 years longer than I should have done, before I came out and did my own thing. So 2016, I really started. I'd already been doing it mornings and weekends, but I really started doing my own stuff, which is all about Productivity Powerhouse. So I've got 3 businesses now. So Productivity Powerhouse, which is a business that looks after people's time. So I'm obsessed with making the most out of every minute that you've got. So I've written a book called Making Shit Happen, created some software called Daily Life Tracker, got a online program called 5 Pillars of Awesome. And that's all about getting the most out of your time so that you don't get to the end of it and you're full of regrets. Then I've got a business called Undercover Intrapreneur, where we help people to become entrepreneurs, and another business called Golden Kite Trading, where we clear businesses out that gone into administration. So that's me in a probably fairly big nutshell,
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Carl. So I'm going to come back to those things that you've mentioned. But first of all, just for everyone here, I'd like to ask you about your experience working with and employing non-native English speakers. What is it that you, in your experience, are maybe some of the barriers and some things that people, that you focus on that is really important?
Yeah, I mean, our business was a fairly large business. So the experience I've had with this is, well, a couple of things, actually. Outsourcing in the businesses I've got at the moment, but also we actually employed about 10,000 people in the clothing business worldwide. And the vast majority, there was about 150 in the UK. So the vast majority of those were in Sri Lanka, Cambodia, India, and sort of various places around the world. And I think... So we were obviously set up for that sort of, as that sort of an organization where non-native speakers, non-native individuals were part of the business because they were native in their own country. And, there are some challenges in doing that. Obviously, there's the distance, but from, I think, what you're talking about, I think there's some challenges around culture. And there's some challenges, obviously, around language. But what we were always looking to do inside of that business was we had expats running businesses, certainly initially, but our objective in that always was to get the local people to be running the businesses. So we needed people who could communicate back with the UK, because we were a UK supplier to Marks and Spencer. So people needed to be able to communicate well back to the UK, but we wanted those people to be local people generally.
Right. Yeah. So
questions, I'm not quite sure if I've answered your question, but if you've got any other specific things, then just ask me. See where it goes.
Yeah, so that makes sense. But also, so if you wanted someone to run the business, as you said, a local speaker in that country, a native, but then they would need to be able to communicate with the UK. So what is important then for that communication, really?
I mean, obviously language, the language thing, which is what you're all about, obviously the language thing makes a big difference, but it's also people who are willing to sort of step up and do that, because speaking in a second language when you still live in country, I'm not a language speaker, I'm sorry to say, I imagine that because you're not surrounded by the language going on all the time, the second language can be quite challenging. So you've got to put yourself into a situation where you are constantly stepping up into that, so that you're not drifting back into your native language when you're in the business. Because if you're doing that, there's nothing wrong with that, of course, because it's your native language. Like I say, I'm not a language speaker, so I'm not here to criticize or anything. But the more that you step into we English, obviously, into English with us, the more you become fluent and proficient in it, and the more people come to you as being the person locally on site who knows, who understands what we want, who understands the language, who understands the culture. So then you can become that conduit between the two countries.
Yeah, I think if you can put yourself in that position, it's really powerful.
Definitely.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I want to ask you next about the COVID situation, what we've been going through around the world. It's affected all of us. How have things changed in terms of the way you deal with members of staff, international communication, and in your experience in your field, how has the marketplace opened up?
I mean, Zoom has almost become a noun, hasn't it, rather than a company's name?
Yeah, and a verb and a noun. And
yeah, and it's amazing. And I think that this was always there, of course, the ability to communicate overseas. And from our point of view, in my businesses that I run now, the communication has always had to be through video conference. I think COVID has obviously made that much more acceptable, much more easily attainable, so that everyone can do this. Everybody can just get out and be a part of a worldwide community, worldwide organization. There's no barriers anymore. And it's not like it's something that's, it's not like it's now something that is unusual. So that, it looks like you're not going the extra mile by traveling to country. It might have looked in the past, whereas now it's very, very normal that you do your communications. You have all of the stuff that you do is Zoom based. And that's actually great, because you can share screens, you can do all sorts of things nowadays without the cost of travel, without the inconvenience of travel, without the fear of not getting somewhere because the roads are full. Everything becomes much more efficient once you get used to doing it. And I don't think, there are stats in the UK, I think, are saying that something like 1 million people will not go back into their offices after this has happened. And this is staggering now, that the world has changed so that home working is much more acceptable now. And we will go back to some of the face-to-face. Obviously, people need that. And we'll go back to some of the office working, but it will not be the same as it was.
Right.
Fantastic. We've got to embrace it. I've been looking at doing the home working thing for years. Even when I was back in the clothing business, I was talking to the more senior people, even before we took over the business, talking to them about doing more home working. And people could not get their heads around it until they were forced to this last year. And now it's normal now, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. New normal.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've written a book called Making Shit Happen. For those who don't know, can you first of all explain the term, the choice of the title of the book, and then can you give us an outline of this? And I'll share the book on screen here, because it's a great book. Yeah, I would show you the hard copy, but it's on my Kindle here. You see? There we go. You got the Kindle version.
Yeah. So Making Shit Happen. It's obviously a bit of a colloquialism, but it's there. It's designed to grab your attention. So it's got that word in the middle of it that sort of makes you sort of step back and think. but it's all about what do you need to do to make something happen in your life. And because we've got one, and it's such a cliche to say we've only got one life, we need to live it, but it's so true that you've really got to do everything you can to make every minute count. And that's what this is all about. And so I go through what I call the 5 pillars of awesome inside the book, and I've got a course that does this as well. And the idea is that you, on the first 3 pillars, you're actually just working on yourself. So, the first pillar is about habits, and we'll come back to that, I think, in a moment, Dave. The first pillar is about your habits, because habits are everything that you do. Habits are so prevalent throughout your life, and most of them are just come about just because of what's going on inside of your daily routines, and it's not things that you put in place yourself. So we look at how you get rid of bad habits and how you create good habits, because consistency is the biggest thing that you will ever do that will change your life. It's about the small things. Small things consistently performed will produce extraordinary results, or ordinary activities consistently performed produce extraordinary results. That's what the habit pillar is about. The alignment pillar is more about the personal development. So how do you motivate yourself? How do you create energy that's there all the time? And there's lots of different elements to that, but that's all about the personal development sort of stuff. Then we got balance, because it's not all about work. It's not all about action. It's about how you create a blended life that is fulfilling, that you love, and that inspires you to do more and more of what you want to do. Then we get onto integration, which is about bringing all of this stuff together. So actually, the sort of planning, the goal setting, and all of those sort of things, the list building, so that the more traditional time management sort of stuff, and then tracking. Because if you don't track things, then they don't work. What gets measured gets done. What doesn't get measured gets missed. And if you don't track things, then, it might work for you for the first week or even the first month. But then a bit of life will take over, and you'll stop doing those things that you intended to do and that were working for you at one time. And so the tracking is about making sure that you're measuring and monitoring what you're doing, so that you don't have to keep going back and reviewing all of this stuff again. If you do something and you repeat it and you repeatedly do it, then you don't have to go back and start the whole process again, which is what a lot of people do with time management courses. You do one, you come up with some good ideas, life gets in the way, and you stop using those good ideas, and you have to go back to the start again. Well, the idea of the tracking thing is to make sure that you're consistently applying it all into your life.
Yeah, and I highly recommend this book to anyone. I'll put a link in the comments afterwards. And I remember picking it up straight away, and something in the book in the early pages struck me, and I think it was about changing a light bulb, and I did it, and it was the first small action that led to more. And since the end of the book, I now use your tracking software, which I'd like to talk about next, which is called Daily Life Tracker. Yeah. I use it, religiously. I use it. So I'm going to share a picture about that. Can you tell us what is a daily life tracker? How can we use it? And I think particularly for the viewers of this, it'd be interesting to how could we use it maybe with language, and maybe I'll talk a bit about that as well. But
yeah, sure. So Daily Life Tracker was a piece of software that I created because I couldn't find the thing that I wanted to use. I was looking for something to help me to build systems and habits and structure into my life. I couldn't find it. And so I went out and I created it. And I was doing through a coaching program I was doing with a Tony Robbins coach, one of his master coaches. And we came up with this idea that, you come back, because I'd gone away to one of Tony Robbins' courses and come back, you're high as anything when you come back from one of those courses. But because I've done it 2 or 3 times, that once you stop, everything goes back to normal, back to life again. Life comes in, it gets in the way of the good things that you want to do, and then you all of a sudden stop it. And so I built this software to try to create those habits in a structured way. So the idea is that you can, well, there's multiple parts to it now. So it's not just about the habits anymore. It's actually a whole life management system. So I use this. I use Daily Life Tracker. It's on both of my computers. I've got two computers open. It's on both of them, so that I'm running both my to-do lists and actions that I need to get through in the day and in the week and in the month and forever. So everything that I have is all in the one place. And also it's there to make sure I'm building the consistent habits. And consistency, we need to come back to consistency, because consistency is the answer, certainly for languages, for everything that you do. Consistency, consistency, consistency. And that's what the tool is there to do. It's there to make sure you build a structure around things so that you can build those habits into your life consistently. And because you will go off track. It's not all about balance. When you want to make something happen, you have to focus. But the beauty about Daily Life Tracker is it allows you to focus. It tells you that you're going out of balance over here because you're focusing so much over here. And then you can instantly get yourself back to where you need to be, because you've got it all structured out in a way that means that you come back to that structure that you set when everything was nice and calm and easy. And it's all about the chaos, isn't it? It's about getting through the chaos. Like John Wooden, I love the analogy that I talk about with John Wooden. So John Wooden was a basketball coach in America, one of the best ever basketball coaches. And one of the things that he would do, and he was one of the most successful people in that sport. And he would get his players throwing free throw after free throw after free throw after free throw, thousands of times. And it wasn't because they get thousands of free throws in a game. It was because when you're in the middle of the chaos of the game, if you get one, boom, it's in. No thinking, it's just in. And it's exactly the same with our lives. That if you get the basics right and you're doing them day in, day out, and you're getting those basics right, when chaos hits you, you carry on doing the basics in, out, and you're doing it all the time. And that keeps you going when all that chaos is happening around you. And so that's the real drive around what we do with the software.
Yeah, fantastic. And now it's also available as an app as well, which I think is really useful. Yeah, that's a great analogy. And, other software and apps that just make it so easy to get this consistency, even if it's just a few minutes a day. When it comes to language, it's better to do that rather than to do, 1 hour a week and then not do another hour for a couple of weeks.
So to ask you a question, do you build that into when you're using Daily Life Tracker and you use it, you're probably number 2 behind me in people using it properly. And that's because I've been using it for like 15, 20 years. So when you're using this, have you built a system around your language program, and for your students, is that something that you could do to create a template almost around what they need to do on a daily basis so that they can the thing for me is that you when you know specifically what you need to do, not generally, specifically what you need to do, you can do it. When you know generally, something's going to get in the way, or you'll just do a tiny bit. Mm-hmm. So how do you use it in that, or how do you think you could use it if that was something that we wanted to go into?
Yeah, definitely. At the moment, I just use it personally. I have it for my own language. I do a certain amount of language every day, every week. But it is something that I would really like to offer to my students, because I think it's so useful. It's so powerful. It serves as a kind of accountability to show that you say you're going to do this, and if you can't do it because life gets in the way, it's okay. You don't need to beat yourself up, but you need to say, well, why didn't I do it? What got in the way, and what do I need to then change going into the next one? Not just, I couldn't do it, I can't be bothered, and you make up excuses in your own mind.
That's absolutely spot on, Dave. I think when you are learning anything, the 2 things that are really critical. One is having a coach or a mentor, like you're teaching your students. So having someone like you for your students, having someone like you to go to personally is massive. But no matter how good you are, no matter how well-intentioned you are, you can't be there 24/7.
No.
You can be there to kick them up the butt and say, you need to do this. Are you doing it? And to help with that accountability. But then the 24/7 thing is in the system. So if you've got a system and a coach and a teacher, then that gives you everything that you need, because your system is there with you 24/7. Your system has got all your actions that you need to take. There's a sharing module inside a DLT that allows you to see. So if your students were using it, it would allow you to see what your students are doing and what they're taking off. So you can then go back to them when you have your conversation with, you can go back to them and say, I can see you. And it's obviously honesty based. Everybody can go through and just tick yes, 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 yes when they're not doing it. But it'll fall apart when you have the conversation with them as the coach, and they say, yeah, I've done everything for the last 2 weeks. And you go, but your language hasn't improved any. So what's going on there? But when you have that combination, it's a massive, massive advantage to everybody involved.
Yeah, I think we need to maybe talk about this a bit more. We can continue this conversation, because it's definitely something that I'm looking to do. But for now, I'd like to move on to the next question. So yeah, you've got a group called Undercover Entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the group here, which is it's just started?
Yeah. Sure. So Undercover Entrepreneur is a business that I've got with business partner Paul Hornsey-Pennell, and we're essentially business coaches, business mentors. We help people to start and scale their businesses. So we've been doing one-on-one, two-on-one actually, because it's always Paul and me doing the coaching. And we've got very different backgrounds, and we help people to, well, in general terms, we help people to become entrepreneurs, to get out of the corporate world, become entrepreneurs, or to just come out of school and become entrepreneurs. And so, because that's all about, it's all about the, you having control. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that job security isn't as secure as we might have thought it was. Everything fell apart. Lots of people have lost their jobs. And what we're talking about in Undercover Entrepreneur, it's not, entrepreneurialism isn't necessarily for everyone. I think everyone can do it. And we have this conversation about whether you're born or made as an entrepreneur. And that's another conversation that's probably a bigger one than we want to go into here. But that's what this is all about. It's all about, and so we've restructured during COVID. Actually, we've restructured that business to take it away from being the direct one-on-one, two-on-one stuff, which we still do, but generally now we're looking at membership programs. So it's much more accessible to everyone because the pricing is much more accessible. So people can get in on a monthly basis and just join us, see what's going on. We got an amazing platform where you can search for all your terminology. You search for it and it finds every moment in it in each video that we've done where we've mentioned the word that you've searched for. So the platform is amazing. And we're building the community. So we're early on in the stages of building that community. We're still sort of founder member sort of thing, but it's a fantastic program. And yeah, we're loving it because this means everything. This is the life-changing stuff. This is the real life-changing stuff. This is all about getting down and you taking control of your life and doing the things that you want to do.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for it as one of your founder members. It's really fantastic.
Yes.
So,
and sorry, let me just mention this actually as well, because this is important, not just for what you do with our group, but also for your students in your group. Active participation. So you, Dave, are a super active participator in the group that we've got in our group. So you're the person who's, you're putting posts into the group, you put in questions into the group, you're answering other people's questions, you're getting involved, you've been on what we called our member interrogation. We changed that word to debriefing after your interrogation. But
you're paying for.
but the point is that you got involved, and when you get involved, a couple of things happen. One, you become engaged, and so you get much more out of it. But also, you then inspire other people to do it, and the more that you do it, the more you get out of the program. And that, again, for anybody inside of your group, is you're a model. You're a model student in our group. And what people need to be doing is modeling the way that you operate is what people need to be doing inside of your group. Getting involved, asking the questions, getting onto the calls, because it certainly at early stages, it means that, I jumped into your group because you're so active in our group that you ask someone to do something, they're going to respond to you in a way that gives you something more back because you're giving. So it's very powerful, the way that you engage in a group, and the way that you do it is super. And that's, I think, what you need to be encouraging inside your own group as well.
Okay, awesome. That's fantastic. And I think that we probably can end it on that note. That's a good note to end it on today. Unless there's anything else, let me check if I missed any of the questions. I don't think, let me check if there's any questions on here. I don't think there are. But if anyone is watching and you would like to ask any questions.
Yes.
Oh yeah, maybe there's one more thing, because we just now talked about undercover entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur. My group at the moment and what I'm doing is often it's called Go Interview. Although it has a wider purpose, it's for people going for interviews for jobs for existing companies.
Yeah.
But even now, there's a word that people start to use called intrapreneur. And what is that more important these days with people working at home, with people having to work with their own initiative? Can you give us this? What intrapreneur versus entrepreneur? What's the difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one's inside of an organization that you work for, which is what I think what you're talking about with the intrapreneur, and the other is doing the same thing but outside of an organization where you take full responsibility. I think the idea of intrapreneur and what you can do inside of your business, inside of the business that you can work for. What can you bring? What innovation can you bring into your business, into the business that you work for, that makes you stand out? I think that's what this is. It's about how you take responsibility for your actions. Because even if you're working inside of a business, most people, statistics tell us that 87% of people who are working do not enjoy their job. They're not engaged in their job. This is a Gallup poll from 2011-12, and I imagine the statistics have only got worse. But I think 24% of people actively hate what they do. 60, whatever number that becomes, 63% of people just go through the motions, and only 13% of people are actively engaged in what they do and love their work. And that's what I think being an intrapreneur is about. It's being in that 13% where you step up and become a part of that organization as if it was yours, because then you get noticed. People, like I said before, if you're the one who has got the language skills when the people around you don't, and you're an organization that has a UK arm or a UK customer even, or just or something that goes on with a foreign language in a different business, you become the person that they come to because you've stepped up and shown yourself to be different from the others, so that you're the one that they come to. And I think that's what this is about. That's what being an intrapreneur is about. It's about taking that responsibility and holding it, even though it's not your business, but you treat it like it is, because your career is your business.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, do they? They don't.
No, they don't. They just think they're going into work to do work for someone else. Well, treat it as your business. Even if you're going in, treat your career at least as your business. So the job that you're doing today, that's your business, because the better you do it, the more chance you've got of being promoted inside your own business, or the more chance you've got of, if you're not recognized inside that business, stepping up and moving on to the next one when you go to your next interview for your next job.
Yeah, it's students of mine, clients of mine have talked about this, having the entrepreneurial mindset even within, and you see it now even in job postings, that he was looking for, because they want someone who can see the bigger picture, not just doing my job, which is in this little box, and not worrying about the consequences that it has with other people. Taking charge and like you say, going the mile, owning it, going above and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Pate. I won't take up any more of your time. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Great. Thank you,
I
Dave.
will,
Thank you for having me on.
we'll put the
Anytime.
links. Yeah. Take care. We'll catch up with you soon.
See you soon.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Carl.
Dave.
Bye, everybody.